Hello and welcome to Abundance Secrets. This is the virtual summit that we have just been enjoying so much. It's been such a transformational conversation, as you know, with so many incredible experts on the topic of abundance, meant to really support the spiritual entrepreneur really looking to increase the impact, productivity, and prosperity in their lives. So if you're here, we know that you are one of those spiritual entrepreneurs, and we're so thankful that you've been along with us on this journey. I mean, wow, right? How incredible. These speakers have been absolutely just filled with so much wisdom, with so much very unique and very cool life experience. And I have no doubt that they have planted seeds in all of us that, these seeds of wisdom that are going to end up being just so much prosperity in every single area of our lives. So amen to that. And today yours truly is going to be going through the interview series. So I figured, I've been hosting this, you've gotten to know me to a certain degree, but I figured it could be a really powerful thing to include and to contribute to the summit by really sharing with you who I am, how I got here, and taking myself through some of the same questions that I walked the speakers through. So I hope that you'll enjoy this. I hope that this delivers value to your life, and I would love for you to hit reply to the email that you're receiving this in and let me know. And if you're seeing this on Vimeo or you're seeing this anywhere else, you can, comment below, or you can hit reply if you're getting this in an email and share your thoughts with me. So let me start by just introducing myself. So my name is Erin, as you probably know by now. My name is Erin, and I have 20 plus years of experience as a coach. That journey has evolved. It started off as a holistic health coach. I moved into coaching around self-image and like body and food. That moved into spirituality, into relationships, into business, into money. So really the way that I like to call myself now is I am a holistic, intuitive abundance coach. Okay, you could also call me a holistic, intuitive success coach. I've been doing this for over 20 years. I'm also a manifesting mentor and a spiritual teacher. In my opinion, all these things are really the same, and they really just all go hand in hand. I teach yoga. So actually here locally in town, I teach yoga. I run international yoga retreats. I have been personal training since I was 20 years old. I'm almost 45. I'll be 45 October 2nd. And I'm a coach. I work with clients one-on-one, and I facilitate groups, and I work with people, and I do coaching in groups, which is so amazing. And I'm about to actually start another group, which I can tell you about later. So I use mindset tools, I use energy work, I use spiritual principles to help my clients create, cultivate, attract, magnetize, manifest just the abundance that they're seeking. And so let's talk about what abundance is, okay? So as you know, I've been asking all of the speakers, and let me just make sure that we're recording here. Okay, good. I've asked all the speakers, what does abundance mean to them, right? How would they describe that? How would they define that? How do they experience that? So for the purposes of time, I won't go like all the way into just everything that I could say about these questions, but I'm going to give you as much as I can, within a good amount of time. So what abundance really means to me is it is a process. Abundance isn't necessarily, it's not like a one and done. Yeah, it's a process that we are always in. The way that I like to think about it is, when you get into your car and you plug in an address and you tell it where you want to go. And so now you're heading toward that destination. And if you get off track, well, what happens? The GPS will let you know, right? It will let you know that you've taken a wrong turn. It will also let you know if there's a traffic jam up ahead. And I call that sort of like how our intuition works. So for me, abundance is something that I plug deep inside of myself. It's something that I put deep into my internal GPS system so that it is the frequency, the energy, the experience, the action that is constantly guiding every single thing that I do. And I'll say more about that here in a little bit. So it's also a lens. It's a lens that I choose to put on in every single moment. So that's the thing. For me, abundance is a choice that I have to make, that I get to make. Let's reframe that I get to make in every single moment. So, because here's the thing, right? Even when we plug like abundance into our internal GPS, just like even when you plug, wherever you're going into your GPS on your phone or your GPS into your car, that doesn't mean that we're not going to run into issues along the way, right? Like when you're driving somewhere, you could run into a traffic jam. You could hit 5 o'clock traffic. You could run into an accident of some kind. You could run into weather of some kind. There could be some kind of an issue with the tire or the car, right? We know this. We know that things can happen along the way. And so we have to have this decision that we are going in this particular direction and that we have this particular destination. And no matter what happens, we're going to handle those things as they come up, but we're going to keep going. And so for me, that's how I would explain abundance. It's also, so it's the lens that I'm putting on. It's the way that I'm choosing to focus. It's the way that I'm choosing to see things, right? Because we know that we have a choice to see things, to perceive things, to experience things in a certain way. Again, I'll say more about that. It's a frequency. I know we've heard this word a lot throughout the summit. It's a frequency. So in other words, it's an energy. The way I describe this, it's a state of mind. It's a state of heart. It's a state of body. It's a state of your nervous system. It's the way you're breathing. So it's also energy trumps effort. So that doesn't mean that effort isn't important, but we need to have the energetic piece dialed in so that the effort that we put in bears fruit, right? If we don't get the energy part dialed in, then a lot of times our effort does not bear fruit, and that leads to discouragement, right? So, and I'll say more about that. So the other thing I'd like to talk about too, with regard to what abundance is for me and how I work with this with my clients and how I help them get results based on these teachings. And I've used this example a few times throughout the summit, and I use this example a lot with my clients and with my coaching groups. And I don't know how old you are, but if you're my age or around my age, then you grew up watching cartoons that had like the little devil on one shoulder and the little angel on the other shoulder. And that's how I think of lack and abundance, right? So it's this momentary conversation that we get to be in. And it's about which way we focus, right? Am I going to listen to this little red guy over here? Am I going to listen to this little white guy over here, or girl, whatever you want to call it, right? Am I going to listen to the devil, or I'm going to listen to the angel? Both of those things have an agenda for my life. Both of those things have plans for me. And depending on how I focus, that will determine what I do. So abundance is all about focus, which means it's all about learning how to master our focus. So, which means it's actually an awakening. Because until we have a certain level of awakening, we don't even recognize that we have a choice. So I know we hear this word often, awakening, spiritual awakening, right? If you've been on this path for a while, you've heard this. There's not just one awakening. There are many awakenings. And really, I guess I could say there are these awakenings, and then there are these deepenings and these integrations of these awakenings. And so we're in this process of awakening and then deepening those awakenings and integrating those awakenings. And so we're learning how to be more masterful with how we think, more masterful with how we focus, more masterful with how we manage our thoughts, more masterful with how we manage our energy and our breath and our nervous system. And so, of course, more masterful at how we manage our bodies. And so much plays a role in that, right? So many things, what we eat, what we drink, our sleep, the people that we surround ourselves with. And I don't want to go too far off on a tangent, but when we plug abundance into the internal GPS, that starts to guide and dictate and direct, course correct all of our choices. And that doesn't happen overnight, right? It doesn't happen overnight. It happens over time. That's why I said at the first off, it's a process. Okay. I also see abundance as a decision, an intention, a certain quality of life, a certain quality of thinking, a certain quality of breath, of a heart set, a mindset, right? It's a state of heart, mind, body. It's a soft, receptive heart, a receptive system, and really abundance is actually also the same thing as generosity. And they go hand in hand, and this can really get confusing at first because you think, okay, if I want to be more abundant, I need to give more, because we do hear that, right? We hear like, oh, tithe, and if you give away money or you donate or whatever, that you'll be more abundant. And I tried that before I understood all this, and it didn't work. It just ate up the little bit of money that I had. So I don't recommend that. So it's kind of like, but once you get it, abundance is generosity and generosity is abundance, because those two energies come from a state of overflow, right? They come from an understanding that there is more than enough. And if I'm having an experience that isn't that, right? That there's lack, that there's something missing, well, I know that I'm off. I know that I'm out of alignment. I know that I took a wrong turn somewhere, right? And I got a little lost, and I've got to find my way back, if that makes sense, okay? So that's just, just a nutshell. I could go on and on. You guys, I love this topic so, so, so much. And I have the deepest passion in my heart that you will truly get to experience yourself as the abundant, radiant, just full of life force and vitality leader in this world that I know that you are here to be. And I really know what it's like to be in lack. I really understand what it's like to be in scarcity. I really understand what it's like to let worthiness problems and addictions and fear, and not enoughness and blah, 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 all those things, which are, by the way, that's part of lack, right? That's when we're in lack, that's lack, discouragement, lack of worthiness, low self-esteem, no confidence, lack of motivation, lack of inspiration, lack of direction, that's all lack. All of the things that we would consider low vibration, or all of the things that we would consider less than ideal, or sort of undesired things, can more than likely be considered a part of lack. Now, and I'll talk about this again here in a bit, but lack can also, because this is something that I'll say when I get to what my secret is, lack can be leverage. Okay, lack can be leverage. I won't say more about that just yet. So the next question that I'm going to move on to for myself is, what was the biggest abundance block or obstacle for me, right? So I've asked a lot of the speakers this, not all the speakers, but I've asked quite a few of the speakers, right? What's the biggest obstacle or block on your abundance journey that you've had, and how did you overcome that? And boy, that's a big old question, I would say that for me, there have been many obstacles and blocks along the way. There have been many, and I'll talk about a few. And I'm going to talk about these within the categories of health, relationships, and money. And I do that to simplify, because typically speaking, when we are looking to get a result, right, or we're looking for transformation of some kind, it's because one of those areas, one, two, or all of those areas are not thriving. And that's how we know, okay, I need to do something, right? Something has to change. This is when we start to become willing to seek, to read books, to maybe even open ourselves up to spirituality if we haven't done that yet, right? So the first major block to abundance that I had, or I would say, the obstacle that I had was around health, my body, my self-image. And I was a fitness competitor. I had always been a performer my whole life, gymnastics, dance. Like, I was a competitor. I loved to perform. I did competitive cheerleading. I was a performer through and through. So again, like, I was loving those things, but there was also a part of those things being driven by this sort of need to prove myself to the world, this need to get validation, right? This need to do something that helped me feel worthy and lovable and acceptable, and like there was something about me that was special, right? So the first obstacle was when I had been competing in fitness competitions, and I had really taken a passion to exercise and learning about dieting and nutrition and all these things. And I competed for many years, and I won many competitions. And at one point I thought that that would be my career path, And long story short, I realized that it was too extreme. I realized that it was too rigid. I realized that it was unhealthy for me. And I had to start to make my way back to eating in a way that was more balanced. Because when you're competing in fitness competitions, it's a very strict, very rigid kind of eating. My ego had also gotten very addicted to this attention that I would get when I was super lean and really fit and ready for a competition, and like, people just are just in awe of that. I was also in awe of what the body was able to do. It was incredible. I mean, the first competition I ever did was absolutely life-changing, and partly because I really learned the power of visualization. And I didn't know anything about that stuff back then, but I used to visualize myself on the stage. I would listen to the music, and I would visualize my fitness routine. And so when I got up on stage, like, everything just flowed, and I won the competition. But, many competitions and many years later, I just wasn't feeling the joy in any of it anymore. And I was really just doing it because, honestly, I was kind of stuck in the cycle of doing it, and I was afraid not to do it. So when I decided not to do it, I hit all these roadblocks around food addiction, self-sabotage, hating my body. My body went through this whole process of just gaining, weight because I had been on such a strict diet for so long. So it's really just this process of having to heal my relationship with food, with my body, and coming at health and fitness from a place of loving it again. And that took many years and a lot of work. But I'll tell you right now, the thing that shifted it for me was when I realized that how I feel, that how I feel was what mattered, not how I looked. And I'm not saying that we want to just like dismiss how we look and make excuses for being, making unhealthy choices. That's not what I mean by that. I realized that my whole life I had been driven by how I look to others. And it completely cut out of the equation how I feel. And the only relationship I had with how I felt up until that point was how my ego felt, which was based on conditions, which was based on praise, which was based on achievements. So if we want to talk about the nervous system, my nervous system was dysregulated around failure, and it was hypersensitive to failure, to achievements. Like, it's almost like when you feel like, okay, I can't receive love unless I achieve something. So losing this kind of very fit state of body that I had, and completely lost the ability to get it back for years. And I struggled with food addiction, and I struggled with binging, and I struggled with exercise bulimia, and I struggled with low self-esteem. And I mean, all the things, you guys, all the things. And I finally was like, okay, how I feel matters more than how I look. And I want to feel a certain way. And I started to let that be a guiding light for me. I started to let that be a guiding light for me, and it began to influence and impact my choices. Because it's not just about the frequency or the vibration of the reality that we're wanting to create. That's number one. We need to create that first. There does need to be action. I can't just visualize my way into being in shape on the couch and never go to the gym, right? If that's what's happening, then the energetic piece isn't dialed in. Because when the energetic piece is dialed in, there is something in you that will get off that gosh darn couch and go do the workout. And that's what I'm talking about. So that was my breakthrough there with health and body. I had a breakthrough with spirituality, which I'm not really going to go into too much right in this moment, but I realized that I was spiritually bankrupt through that process I just talked about. I was spiritually bankrupt. I was also struggling with addictions with drugs and alcohol. I had to get sober, and I did, and it was the best decision I ever made in my life. So over these years, I was growing spiritually, and then I began to have to address the love and the relationships and the intimacy, because I had broken relationship over toxic relationship after broken, after toxic, after just relationships that didn't work, that didn't go anywhere for about 8 years. After my sort of last sort of long-term relationship at the age of like 22, I didn't have another relationship with anyone. I mean, I had relations, but no relationship until I was 31 years old. Because I was in this cycle of having to heal. This is what I was saying earlier, lack is leverage. I was in this cycle of having to heal these deeper things going on for me around intimacy. So I kept attracting men, boys really, but okay, the age of them were men, that were afraid of commitment, that didn't honor me, didn't cherish me. And finally, one day I asked myself, and this was sort of like I had gotten sober, I was starting to get better, I was starting to heal spiritually. And I had to ask myself, like, why is that? And it's because I had this epiphany. It's because I was also a commitment phobe. I was also terrified of intimacy, because underneath that was a worthiness problem. And I could really say a lot about this, but it's such a huge topic that I'm not going to dive into that too deep right now. But there was a worthiness problem going on. And part of it started from the time, part of it I came in with, part of it was a result of things that happened through my childhood and divorce and just, all kinds of things. Part of it was a result of bad choices that I had made that sort of really chipped away at my self-esteem. Because here's the thing, when we don't live our lives in integrity with who we are meant to be, man, that really injures your self-esteem. It is destructive for relationships. It is destructive for your life, because you are not only harming yourself when you're making these sorts of decisions that are out of integrity with your highest good, but you don't just injure yourself, you injure others in that process. And that is a self-esteem killer. So that was going on for me, okay? But the epiphany for me was that. My epiphany was like, okay, I have to work on my worthiness. I've got to figure out what this worthiness thing is, right? I've got to heal whatever is going on inside of me around this. And so the first step, right, to wisdom is humility. And the second step is awareness. The minute you're aware, you can do something about it. So, I mean, you could even call that an awakening, because until you awaken to that, there's nothing you can do about it. It's kind of like you can't have boundaries until you know what your boundaries are. So, so how does that start? That minute you go, oh, I really need some boundaries here. Oh, I don't know what they are. And then you start asking yourself, okay, well, what are my boundaries, right? So similarly to that, I had to learn about worthiness. And I'll tell you right now, that is a work in progress forevermore. And I don't think that journey ever ends, but I do think that it gets more fun because the worthiness increases. And so it's not so much about oh, I'm not worthy and I'm trying to get to a place where I feel worthy. It's more like I already feel worthy, and this next goal and this next place that my vision is calling me to, this next place that God is calling me to, requires even a bigger, expanded version of my worthiness, right? So, but yay for that, because you get to clear and heal and just move beyond and move past any lack, any limitation, any scarcity that might still have you buying into some lie that you aren't enough. Okay, so that was my epiphany around the abundance that I was experiencing in love and relationships. And like I said, you guys, this is a process. I mean, this is forevermore. We cycle through these categories and we're always increasing in our abundance, right? And I speak to you about this. We're going to go into money right now and wealth right now, but I speak to you about this because for me, I couldn't even begin to address the money thing or the wealth thing until I dealt with these things. And I think everyone's journey, is going to look different. Like some people might address the money thing first, and then eventually they get to the body thing. But inevitably, we address all these categories, right? This is just how it went down for me. And I think what was happening too is I was recognizing, even when I was healing the whole body stuff, that I was really capable of making a lot of money, but I couldn't keep it. I literally couldn't keep it. I had this self-sabotaging thing going on. Okay, so let's talk about money, wealth, success, like my sort of breakthrough with that, my obstacle, how did I overcome it? I had to get honest that even though I love money and we all need money to survive, and I have felt from a very young age that I was destined to be wealthy and destined to have success. I've known that from a very young age. You can't describe how you know something, but you just know it. I also knew that there was going to be some epic challenges along the way. And that was a weird feeling as a young kid, because you're like, you feel this very powerful thing that is really destined, should I say, I don't know how better to say it, to happen. Meaning like, this is why you're here, But then you can also feel simultaneously like, oh boy, that's going to be a journey to get there. Right? Because there's a lot of overcoming oneself that has to happen in the process. I'm just making sure we're still recording, and I'm making sure how long I'm going here. So yeah, I realized that money was never going to be, the pursuit of money was never going to be something that drove me. It was never going to be the thing that drives me. I just am not driven by money alone. Okay? I am driven by security. I'm driven by making a difference. I'm driven by impact. I'm driven by the feeling that I get when my creativity has a place to go. I'm driven by when my creativity, and I'm doing this because it comes from above, right? It comes from higher realms. So I'm driven by the feeling of that creativity coming through my vessel and out into the world in a way that makes someone's life better. That gets me lit the F up, right? I'll just say it. Gets me lit the fuck up. Okay? But I had to really reconcile that within myself. Like, I am not driven by the pursuit of money. So how do I make money if I'm not driven by the pursuit of money? I had to reconcile that. Okay. So all those things, which makes sense why those other things would come first for me, right? Because I had to do some deep inner work and some deep healing in order to be able to create wealth in a way that felt aligned for my soul, right? Like the person that God ordained me to be. I hope I just used that word right. But the mission that I came with, we all have one, in order to fulfill upon that, I had to deal with those other things first. Okay, so with money, I realized that, being at my growth edge, being all of me, that's huge. Honestly, I feel like that's such a big part of it. And I find that the more we can be all of ourselves, And let me clarify, because again, this is such a journey, right? And there's these layers that we hide behind, and there are these programs and this editing software that we have going on in here that really makes that difficult to be ourselves, all of ourselves with people, to be transparent. And of course, like, we don't want to necessarily be transparent with everyone, because it's not safe to be transparent with everyone, but it's like, how do we determine when it's safe, and how do we stay safe in our own nervous system, that we can be transparent with the world and really show up powerfully as the leaders that we're called to be, but be able to do that in a way that we are able to remain safe in our nervous system. Because we know that the more visible that we get, the more visible that you get, right? And so you're exposing yourself to more things, the good and the bad, right? So I had to learn how to get all of that safety and security and regulation in my nervous system going on. Like, I had to dial in my health and my body, and I had to dial in my energy. I had to dial in my spirituality. I had to dial in my intimacy and my relationships and my ability to commit to things, right? And then now I get to focus on the wealth and the money and the success. And it's like, it's not linear. Like, I'm always working on all of those things. But I've worked with shaman, I've worked with monks, I've done all the chanting, I told you I'm a yoga teacher. I've done tons of yoga. I have, been through, sobriety and lots of coaches and mentors, and I walk with God, and, I've had to learn how to walk by faith, not by sight. And I think that's really important when you're an entrepreneur, because you're going to be putting yourself on the line all the time. And I feel like it's really important for us to be able to make a good relationship with that. And I honestly feel like I'm just really, really getting that, like really getting that it can be joyful to create how you're led to create, and go out in the world and share that with people. And whether it gets the results that you want it to get or not isn't the point. That doesn't mean you don't want to look at why it didn't get results and then go figure out how to get better results next time. But we have to keep showing up and creating, even when, because it's a process, right? As I said, wealth is going to be a process. Success is going to be a process. You read any book of any entrepreneur, and I highly recommend reading lots and lots of books. That's something that I've done a ton of. I read every single morning and have a very powerful morning routine, which I can talk about more here in a minute. But it's like, every time you learn from a really successful person, entrepreneur, wealthy person, they're going to tell you, very, very much the same things, right? And so you want to implement as many of those things as possible. And, learning how to master how you think, and finding this, if you don't have the skill set, and I used to hate hearing this, and sometimes I still hate hearing this, when it's like, well, if you don't have the skill set to do it, either go learn the skill set, or go find somebody that has the skill set. And I think, you want to take things one step at a time, because I know in the beginning of a business, like, that is just so overwhelming, right? But there does come a point where you're so fired up by your vision, right? And so this is, again, like a breakthrough for me with the money and the wealth and the success. I have to have a very strong why. I have to really know why I am sharing something. Like, why did I put together Abundance Secret Summit? Why do I coach people around abundance? My why is because I know what happens to a person's life when they're in lack and scarcity. And it doesn't have to be that way. And when we're in the darkness of that, you can feel so much despair. When you are in the grips of addiction, when you are in the grips of family traumas, when you are in the grips of like no money and negative numbers in your bank account, when you are in fear of being homeless, or maybe you are homeless, right? That is not how you are meant to live. That is not what God has planned for you. And I know that, and I've been there. I've been to all those places I just listed. I have experienced personally in my personal life. And so I have a passion. My why is getting the right information into the hands of people that they can be empowered to make the decisions, to put on the lens of abundance, to focus in the right direction. Like when that little devil is screaming your name and trying to lie to you in all kinds of ways, but that angel is there with truth. I want to teach you how to focus in the right direction, right? So that's my why. It's very important to have a why. And that was one of my major breakthroughs around money, wealth, and success is constantly taking inventory of my why and recognizing as well if I'm not taking action, that I'm being too emotional. And if I'm being too emotional, I'm in lack, and I am becoming more vulnerable to the voice of lack, right? It's kind of like when you get a cold. And well, usually when we get a cold, it's because there's something in the atmosphere, right? There's a virus in the atmosphere. And then perhaps you're a little run down. Perhaps, you're a little low on vitamin C or vitamin D or whatever, vitamin B in your system. And, perhaps you've been extra stressed out. Perhaps who knows, right? But there's a vulnerability going on and you catch the virus, right? And so the same thing is with thoughts, the same thing is with emotions. It's like if we let ourselves get too emotional about something, now we become even more vulnerable to more of that, right? What we focus on expands. What we think about gets bigger. Like where attention goes, energy flows. So it's important to stay out of our emotions. And there's a time and a place to process emotions. And I teach that with all my clients, how to process emotions. That's a very important step in all of this, but there's a time and a place for it. There's also a time and a place where we have to make a decision to move forward, and our why has to be powerful enough to get us to move forward. So that's all I'll say about that. That was a really big breakthrough for me. I think there's a saying, what is it? Emotions, when you take the E out of emotion, you get motion, right? So oftentimes what's stopping us from creating the abundance that we seek in all of these areas, like whether you're not going to the gym or whether you're drinking at night or you're stuck in an addiction or you're not taking action towards your business, or you said that you're going to do one thing and you keep not doing it, whatever, you're in your emotions about it. And I'm not trying to diminish or dismiss addiction, because that's some serious shit, and, if you need to talk about that, like hit reply and I'm happy to have a conversation with you about that. But what I mean is that we get stuck in our not enoughness, or we get stuck in what if, or we get stuck in fears of rejection and all this nonsense, instead of just taking action and building our self-esteem by taking the action. Okay, so next thing for me, what is my secret, right? Like I've been asked a lot of the speakers, what is your secret? So for me, and there are probably a lot of things I could say about this, again, I'm just gonna check the time, is my secret is that contrast is leverage. Obstacles are opportunities. Life happens for me, okay? That, there's always good that I can find in something, even if it doesn't feel that way in the moment. Also, I want to be the best wife, the best sister, the best mother if I had children, but mother to my dogs, the best aunt, the best daughter, the best friend, the best teacher, the best coach, the best facilitator, the best leader that I can possibly be. And so my secret is that is plugged into my GPS at all times. So when I try to do things that are out of alignment with that, my GPS is going to be screaming at me. And if I don't get back on track, then that is a recipe for some serious suffering right there. And it takes what it takes. Like sometimes we've got to suffer for a long time before we're like willing to get back on track and get back on the path of abundance, right? And believe me, I've been there. So let me just really quick. So what does that mean? Contrast is leverage. Well, if something, like, I'll give you an example. When I ask clients what they want, a lot of times they tell me what they don't want, okay? And that's okay, because we all could pretty much rattle off like what we don't want, right? And until we get really good at being able to just focus and laser in on what we do want, we might have to start with what we don't want, which means you can kind of bounce off what you don't want, right? Okay, well, I don't want a toxic relationship. Okay, well, if you don't, well, then what does that mean you do want? Well, I want a healthy relationship, right? I don't want to be negative in my bank account. Okay, well, what does that mean? I want to have a positive balance in my bank account, right? I don't want to get stuck at this, this certain income level. Okay, well, what does that want? Okay, well, I want X amount coming in, each month or each year or whatever, right? You get my point. So when contrast is happening in any given moment, and that happens for us all day, every day, like even just you're in traffic, somebody cuts you off. You're in traffic, somebody honks at you, they flick you off, right? Or whatever, right? These little moments that we get this contrast and you're kind of experiencing something that is like, ew, okay, well, it's also letting you know what you want more of. Okay, well, I want more kindness. I want more connection. I want more community. I want to feel more seen. I want compassion, I want to feel understood. I want to feel heard. I want to feel seen, right? Because when someone flicks you off, that just makes you feel so unseen. Like, you don't even fucking know me and you just did that, right? That's my point. Contrast can be leverage. Obstacles can be opportunities, right? So you get, like, I shared a lot of obstacles that I've had with you, and all of those obstacles sucked in the moment. I mean, sucked. And I'm sure that life will present many more for me. But it's like, what are you going to do with that? Which little personality sitting on your shoulder are you going to listen to about it? Because you have free will and you can listen to whatever you want and you can focus however you want. I mean, nobody's going to force you to focus your way into abundance. You have to decide that. Okay? Now, for me, because I am spiritual and I do have a God in my life, like, there is truth that I base all this on, and it makes it a lot easier. I'm just saying. So that's really what I would say about that. My secret is I plug abundance deep into my inner being. I let it be the guiding light and help me navigate each and every moment. I use contrast as leverage. I use obstacles to become opportunities. And even when I feel so sad or I'm grieving or I'm upset about how things are going in my life, I always circle myself back to life is happening for me. So what am I going to do with this? How am I going to turn lemons into lemonade, right? How am I going to alchemize this into gold, right? It's like this alchemy that we're experiencing. The phoenix rising from the ashes, right? So that's all I'm gonna share with you today about that, just in the purposes of time. Let me tell you just a little bit about my free gift. I've actually got 2 free gifts for you. And one of them is called Abundance Breakthrough. So this is going to be just a 4-step process that is gonna kind of walk you through some steps that I have found to be extremely profound in my own life and also in my clients' life that really helps you create momentum. And I didn't really talk about momentum in this, but momentum is huge. Momentum is a result. So let's talk about a belief. Like, your beliefs, all those are thoughts that got created at some point, and you began to rehearse that thought over and over and over. So it got momentum, and then it started to produce a reality. Okay? So I'm going to walk you through a process, a 4-step process in my Abundance Breakthrough free gift to you that will help you create positive momentum that is in alignment with your highest good, that will help you, that will fuel the actions that need to be taken so that you can, like me, get the results in your body and your health that you want, get the results in the relationships that you want, get the results in your career, your business, your money, okay? So that's one free gift. The other free gift, if you love energy, if you love the chakras, if you love yoga, I have a 7-day chakra series, a yoga series. It's like very short little yoga practices. Each day we focus on a different chakra, which is a different energy system if you're not familiar with the chakras. And it starts at the base of your spine and it works its way up. So you're working with your sort of survival, and you're working with your creativity and your personal power and your ability to receive and your ability to speak and your ability to, connect to your intuition, your ability to connect to higher realm, to God, right? To be able to channel that stuff through and bring it through, because we all need divine intervention. We all need divine guidance, right? We all need divine support. So if that calls to you, that's the 7-day chakra series. And I'm giving you both of those free gifts. So take them both or take one, whichever one resonates for you more so. And within those free gifts, you'll see that you also get a chance to book a free call with me. So excited about that. Really hope I get to talk with you one-on-one. Really hope I get to see more of you. Please let me know if you have any questions. You can find me on Instagram at Erin Lanahan Method. And of course, I'll give you all the links here in the email. If you're getting this in an email, then all the links are below this video for you. Erin Lanahan Method is me on Instagram and also Facebook. And of course, I'm on YouTube as well, Erin Lanahan Method TV. And my website is erinlanahanmethod.com. So it's fairly easy to remember. Erin Lanahan Method is pretty much who I am across all social media platforms. And I will provide all those links for you. So thank you so much for being here. I am standing in agreement with you for your abundance, for your abundant health and your abundant romance and passion and family and love and marriage and relationships. And I'm standing in agreement with thriving vitality and radiance and energy and a physical body that feels incredible, amazing, a body that feels like it is a true expression of you. And I'm standing in agreement with your divine connection, with your ability to know who God is in your life, that you would feel that love and that graciousness and that protection and that guidance, that direction in your life. And I'm standing in agreement with you that you will have the wealth and the abundance and the prosperity that you have been dreaming about. And I'm standing in agreement knowing that this summit, that this video right here and now, that everything you've watched along the way with all of the speakers is an answer to your prayers. And it's a way that the universe, that the angels, that God is speaking to you and letting you know that you're on the right track. And you are so supported. So we love you. Thank you for being here. Please reply to this email if you're getting this in email with any questions or any feedback or any comments. I'd love to hear from you. And I'd love to see you in Abundance Breakthrough. I'd love to see you in the 7-day chakra series. And I'd love to get that one-on-one call with you. So thank you so much for being here. We're going to call it for now. Have a great evening or a great day. Bye for now. Talk soon.